North Korea has drawn a line, and this time it's not a negotiating line. At the ruling party Congress, Kim Jong Un declared that expanding nuclear weapons is now state policy and not leverage. He spoke of more warheads, new delivery systems, artificial intelligence, and missiles designed to survive any first strike. To discuss more on this, with us now is Professor Tilman Roof. He's the co-president of International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War. Welcome to WION, Professor.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, Professor, for decades, diplomacy rested on one fragile assumption that denuclearization, however distant, it remained possible. Now, is Kim Jong Un formally ending the denuclearization era and declaring that nuclear weapons are permanent and no longer up for negotiation?
Look, I think that process has been underway for a number of years. In 2022, North Korea introduced legislation enshrining its right to develop and use nuclear weapons, and that was cemented in the Constitution in 2023. So Kim Jong Un has repeatedly said that North Korea's nuclear weapons are not up for negotiation, and has continued to have a very comprehensive and rapid program of development of nuclear weapons and a whole variety of missiles, land-based, road mobile, submarine launched, long-range missiles, tactical weapons as well. So I think for quite a long time the signs have been that from the North Korean side, denuclearization is not an option.
Professor, Kim has also left the door to Washington open, but only if the US, quote, respects North Korea's current status. That was what he told, and that phrase is doing a lot of work. So when Kim says respect our status, is it demanding sanctions, relief, security guarantees, or maybe a full acceptance of North Korea as a legitimate nuclear state?
Certainly acceptance as a nuclear state. He didn't make specific remarks that were reported in this address to the 5-yearly Korean Workers' Party Congress about sanctions relief or other demands, but I imagine that there would be other political and economic demands that would follow. I think what this policy really is intended for is essentially a regime and leadership insurance policy to try and mitigate against overthrow and regime change, particularly when one looks at the willingness of the United States to attack states that are not directly threatening it and conduct regime change operations, most recently in Venezuela. Last year we had attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran poses no military or immediate threat to the United States. So that would have made the regime even more concerned that they might be next in line. And I think for a very brutal and autocratic regime, survival of the leadership and the regime is really the driving political objective. So that will be behind much of this positioning. It's probably relevant too that President Trump plans to visit China in April. China doesn't like North Korea's nuclear developments, but has been relatively quiet because I think it sees the status quo and a somewhat dependent, non-hostile country on its border as probably preferable to an alternative that a united Korea, for example, might pose and be more closely aligned with the United States. So China is critical in this, but North Korea may well be trying to increase the attention it gets from the United States prior to President Trump's visit to China.
Professor, you mentioned the policy, the nuclear policy, of course, and this Congress was both about more weapons and it was also about smarter, harder to stop technologies, the latest technologies. So why announce AI-driven systems and underwater launched nuclear missiles right now at this moment?
Well, this is an important occasion, this Congress of the party ending with this huge military display where Kim Jong Un was accompanied by his daughter, his teenage daughter, who seems, by all accounts, to be probably appearing in public because she's been designated as the heir apparent from his point of view. So this is a major opportunity for him to cement his authority. There's the exercise, the superficial exercise that's gone through of re-electing him as party leader. This Congress is a big deal. So he wants to be seen to be all-powerful. He wants to unite the nation, to increase acceptance of the extraordinary hardships that the North Korean population endures on the basis of essentially aggravating, enlarging the threat that is posed to North Korea from externally. So he also wants to demonstrate that the regime has significant military prowess, both in terms of the scale of the developments and also their cutting-edge technological nature. And it's quite likely that he's cashing in too on the fact that North Korea provided thousands of soldiers to assist Russian forces in their invasion of Ukraine, with reportedly disproportionately high casualties, and that in a sense now they are collecting on that support provided with increased Russian assistance for missile and nuclear developments. So that's probably helping them to make developments more quickly than they otherwise could.
Professor Kim has also slammed the door on South Korea, its neighbor, calling it a hostile enemy, yet stopped short of closing off the United States. So what does it signal when Pyongyang dismisses South Korea entirely but keeps Washington in place? So is Kim saying only superpowers matter, and is Trump still leverage for Kim?
Yes, I think he wants attention from the United States, and he wants to make it clear that he wants to deal directly with the United States and be taken very seriously, and not go via inter-Korean relationships as the primary determinant or gateway for North Korea's relationship with the United States. One must remember that the only way that a technically backward, impoverished, extremely isolated country like North Korea can pose any significant military threat to the United States is because of its nuclear weapons. So this is regime protection, this is attention seeking, this is saying deal directly with me, don't bother talking to your friends in the South.
Yes, the question for the world is now how to respond to a nuclear state that insists it is here to stay. That is it for now. Thanks for joining us, Professor, and helping put these developments in context. It's a pleasure.
My thanks.
Thank you.